Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric Morgan over there. Ta-da! That's Vanessa Williams over there. You're listening to us on Thursday.
Thursday.
Or maybe Friday, Saturday. I don't know.
Friday.
If you can't make it, you better be in jail or something.
Honk, honk.
Dead. And if you're in jail, break out. Hey, guys.
Jesus. It's not 2 a.m. here. I mean, it's a little later than we usually record. But
Everything feels weird where it's dark out. I've never been. You guys look so different in this lighting.
I know. Hideous.
Sorry about
Hideous
that.
to behold.
Completely new people. Feel a little awkward right now.
Before we get into everything, you guys, I wanted to remind some of our listeners about a Kickstarter that's going on by the artist Heather Hudson. You could
remind
search
us.
for-
You never told us about this. Why don't you tell us about
I was supposed
it?
to tell you about it last week.
How long is this Kickstarter running?
Not much longer. October 26th is when it ends.
Oh, okay.
We got time.
Yeah, Heather Hudson does these super cool Lovecraftian mythos Christmas cards.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're hilarious and they're super cool. I get them every single year. And the name of her company is Studio Wonder Cabinet. They have a Kickstarter going on every year for these things, and it's cheap. It's like $12, and you get like
cool.
6 cards or something. So get on those, you guys. Give them a try. And quite honestly, they've already hit their Kickstarter level or whatever it needed to be to actually happen. But you want to get in on these because these are cool cards. I don't know if you've noticed, you go into Hallmark, not a lot of horror cards, even general horror cards on Christmas.
It's true.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
We need more horror in our Christmas.
Absolutely.
You have to go to like Etsy for that. I'm just saying.
That's true.
I have done such things.
The way you
so.
said that, you have to go to like Etsy for that.
I mean,
Can't find that at Walmart. You got to go to Etsy.
Anyway, you guys, Studio Wonder Cabinet, Heather Hudson, Mythos Christmas card. You'll love them.
What's really in that can you got in front of you?
it's not ginger ale.
Hey, I wanted to do a little continuation on something. I don't know, Vanessa, if you know that my downstairs neighbor doesn't know my name.
I did not know this. This is exciting.
He thinks he knows my name. He thinks my name is Casey.
Yes.
And I have low enough self-esteem that I don't feel like I could ever correct anybody if they got my name right.
What if you just wore a name tag?
I just answer to whatever you call me. I'm fine with it. That's the way I was raised. And then they're doing all sorts of construction downstairs and all this stuff. And it's not, I'm not sure that any of us are going to be here past the end of our lease in February-ish or whenever. But I was talking to him and I said, what do you think about all this going on down here? And he said, I don't think we're going to be around much longer. I was like, wow, yeah, I don't think so either. I haven't talked to my upstairs neighbor. And then I kind of was like, shoot, what's his name? And he goes, I think it's Kelly. And I was like,
Oh, so his name's probably KC.
no, I know his name isn't. His name's Ryan. But I looked at him for a moment and I had my chance and I go, I know it's not Kelly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're just going to wait until you all move out. You're not even going to bring it up. You're just going to let this ship sail.
I'm thinking of just changing my name to Casey.
Oh, sure. You could pull off Casey.
Sure.
Eric had come up with the idea that
I could just Casey.
I could just tell him like my middle name was Charles or something and that I go by KC. And I was like, that's just elaborate enough of a lie that I might go through with
I would actually consider that one. I feel like you know what? It's funny you mentioned that 2-3 weeks ago. My name is Kelly, but my middle name. Okay, look,
I've always gone by Charles, and sometimes I forget.
Just for bring it up when nobody's asking for this conversation.
That seems like I'll just knock on his door. Hey, by the way.
At some really random time, like 3:45 p.m. Like, hey, buddy.
I thought you might be wondering.
This is such a Charlie Brown moment.
God. This is what it's like to live in my head. I won't. If somebody was to say to me that I was a lovely woman, my answer would be,
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah.
I would never correct anybody.
Yeah. I'm not dissimilar. Like I've had to learn to be a little bit rougher around the edges just to survive in the film industry.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, most of the time I'd just be so polite beyond any reasonable amount.
Yes.
For no particular reason to nobody's like desire nor benefit.
Well, I think that I have a friend, Facebook friend, nobody you know, and she has
Lives in Canada.
Sure. She has a relatively common name, and she would prefer to be called a different pronunciation of this name.
Oh, okay.
And she makes a point of it.
Okay.
And she had put something on Facebook posting how, people don't pronounce her name correctly. And then some other guy with another common name said, my name has never been pronounced correctly. And they had a conversation there on her page saying, yeah, the first time I met you, we talked for hours about no one being able to pronounce our names correctly. And I thought, this sounds like the worst fucking party ever. These are two people I do not need to sit next to at a party.
There's a reason why my email address is what it is. I just get that. I get that chip out of the way immediately. I'm like, okay,
Not who you're thinking.
there's an elephant in the room. Let's just deal with this. And yeah,
You could go by Vanessa.
I can't even imagine what you would do with Vanessa to make it work in some other. I've been called Van. I've been called Ness, Nestle, Nessie,
Vanessa.
Essa, V Dog.
Ooh, I like that.
There you
Everybody
go.
has like their own like name for me, and I just just roll with it. But I've never. I don't know if somebody came up to me and was like Vanusa. I don't know how you correct somebody.
You just go, yes.
Yeah,
Can I help you?
That's me.
Right.
Close
Yes,
enough.
you have
How you
found
doing?
her. I am here.
Well, what I love is your email, not that Vanessa Williams.
Yeah.
People still think you're Vanessa Williams.
amazing.
And then you just go along with it anyway, so you're just like me.
I know.
That's the regular way you work. When you have to correct somebody at this stuff, there's something else going on.
That's true. I really could care less. Although I do like the person who wanted to buy my dress that I wore to the Tony Bennett.
What'd you end up sending them?
I was thinking about sending them a T-shirt or something that like I'd worn recently, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet, which is sad because it was for their birthday. So I really feel like I need to make an effort.
You know what'd be awesome is if we hit up the Goodwill down the street, we find like some incredibly tacky 1980s prom dress or something. We just fold that up, send that to her and say, no charge.
That's all.
There you go.
And then wonder what this person is doing when they open it up. And they're
Right.
They pop up on eBay
like, no,
2 days later.
They're
This
like
is
this.
from.
This isn't the dress she was wearing.
I feel like you're welcome. I'm glad I could do this enormous favor for you. I would spend the $45 in shipping to make this happen. I really would. It sounds
right.
magical.
Enough of this nonsense, you guys. What have you been watching?
Well, I was going to do a quick shout out for Jason Weiss for. We had a little conversation about the serial killer ones, and he mentioned a couple could-be's that are horrifyingly hard to watch. One's an Australian movie called Snowtown Murders.
Oh my God, I've actually seen parts of this.
And the other one is Angst. Have you seen that one? It's Henry level uncomfortable to watch. Very, very, I would almost say intimate killings when the killer breaks into people's houses and just like messes with them for a long time. It's a really good film, but it's not a really good watch. So yes, you're right, Jason. Those are both excellent choices.
Thanks,
for
Jason.
serial
We'll
killer
totally get
films.
on that any minute now when we want to feel really bad about the world. Next time I want to hang myself, I'll just watch one of those instead.
Man.
Sorry, that got way. I was
Quite that dark. Jesus.
It's dark outside, guys. Okay, it's just infecting
Oh,
me.
okay. That's fine.
Yeah, and also it was funny because I ran into a couple of people who turns out are listening And I did not know. And this is becoming more and more exciting. Like my mom.
Oh, really?
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hello.
It's okay. It's only when she like sees the link and presses the button. So if she can't manage that much, you're safe. But she's probably listening. So hi, Mom. You're great. And then I went to that wrestling show that I ran into you at some kind of thing at Washington Hall. A friend of mine there was like, "Hey, I listened to your show." I was like, I didn't even know you were on Facebook. This is thrilling. So thank you to Michael, and also thank you to Micah, who's now listening to this religiously, another friend of mine. So yeah.
Nice.
Oh, well,
Slowly but
since we're-
surely.
Very cool.
Since we're just throwing names out there, then my niece has started listening to the
Hello,
show.
niece.
Well, that's cool.
4 years old, and I thought that was a little inappropriate, but
That's way
As long
too
as she's
young.
not watching the movie, as long as she's not watching the movies we recommend, I think we're probably okay.
I guess that's
no,
true.
it is my my favorite person in the whole world, Kayla. So, and
yes,
she's
great.
has grown up to be a super nerd, and I mean, her wedding was Harry Potter themed and all this stuff, and
nice.
she gave me. I don't know if it was at the wedding or if it was at Christmas or something, but she gave me a hug and said, "Thanks for making it cool to be a nerd in this family." And I was like, "Oh man,
Nice. You paved the way.
yeah." I love you, Kayla. Now, what have we been watching, you fucking
yeah.
nerds?
I'm assuming you probably still haven't finished Preacher yet.
No, I haven't finished Preacher.
You haven't started watching it, so
I've never. Yeah, I have. I read the comics. I felt pretty solid about that.
yeah, I enjoyed the ending quite a bit. So hopefully,
good.
when you do watch it, you'll like it. So
And
we'll
that's the
move on
end,
from
end,
that.
right?
Yeah, it's the series wrap up,
Cool.
which is good. I don't know how well it's doing ratings wise, but this is a finite story. Let's make it a finite series. Instead of just sort of rolling it on.
Yeah, but if they had followed the comic, they could have had another
Couple.
6 seasons out of it.
Yeah,
So it couldn't have been doing that well in the ratings.
Good, probably right.
Pessimistic.
Well,
view.
I don't know. They shot the last season in Australia. They flew to all the cast. Everybody went down to shoot in Australia, so they had some money still coming in.
Well, you think they went to shoot there because
did.
they had a lot of money?
I was
a lot
actually
of
wondering
money.
if that's a way to save money.
You don't go to Australia when you've got no money. You go to Bulgaria
Or
or
Utah.
Peru or something like
Somewhere.
that when you have no money.
Your
Okay,
cousin's
well, they did need
field,
a desert, so
Yeah.
New Mexico.
wow.
That
Said with such contempt.
No, I mean like it's pretty.
Sorry to everybody in New Mexico that listens to us.
No, I mean there's like hot air balloons, and that's nice once a year.
okay, moving on. What about the Creepshow series? Have you seen more
No,
than I have?
I didn't
on
watch that.
I'm
but
watching
it
it.
looks. It sounds like it's gonna be. Is it good? Is it any good? Is it a waste
Have you
of time?
watched all of them?
I've seen the first one, but I've heard it. I didn't dislike the first one as much as you did. I've heard it gets better with the second one. So
That's what you were going to say. I've seen the first one, but I heard it gets better.
well, that still applies. Yes, I did not think much of the first episode. I was like,
No.
why would you start a new series with
How
such a derivative?
how long are the episodes?
It was half hours, aren't they?
Is that all it is?
Well, per story.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's got 2 stories, and each episode they run, I guess, a half an hour. I think they just kind of fill
around
up.
that, which is nice. It's better than stretching to fill the
The time,
time, at least, I
like
guess.
Twilight. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It didn't have the creep show vibe. It didn't have the black humor. It didn't have the right transitions between scenes of comic book stuff.
Yeah.
Although they did try to do a few of those things, and they do it better in the second full episode.
Huh, cool.
But it just didn't have it didn't feel like Creepshow. It felt like Nightmares and Dreamscapes. No, it felt like Tales from the Dark Side, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a much better comparison. That's a lot more what it felt like was a reboot of that or yet another kind of Twilight Zone-y thing, especially the second in the first episode, the second story.
Yeah. That second story, that's based on a Josh Malerman story, which is quite good, but I don't think they captured any of that in this, which was a disappointment.
Yeah, it's kind of clever and fun, but yeah, it's beyond the gimmick. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It needed to have some kind of biting, dark ending that would have made us, kind of laugh like Creepshow does. Now, the second episode has one good segment in it, which is a World War II werewolf story
Oh, nice.
that's written and directed by Rob Schraub.
Oh.
If you know
That's
Rob
good.
Schraub, he's
That's
the guy
good.
who created Scud, the Disposable Assassin, which I think is absolutely perfect.
Not based on a Robert McCammon book?
No.
Too bad.
And this one has the humor, and it's got some of the transitions, although they didn't do them correctly. And it's got some neat stuff, like they could not afford a werewolf transformation. And so the werewolf transforms by flipping the pages of the comic book.
Oh, well, that's a clever solution.
It is, absolutely, and it totally worked for me because it was apparent why they did it, and it was clever enough that I was totally fine with it. And it has a funny, funky ending, so I'm
cool.
hopeful.
Cool. That's good.
There's something about having a Creepshow TV series going on in the month of October that just makes me happy anyway.
Yeah. This is a good point. Yes. Hey, I see that. How about you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've started my October like horror film a day situation, which
How is this any different than any other day in your life?
Yeah.
I feel like you're not the first person who's asked me this question this week. But I actually kind of held off on some horror films in the last month so I could make room for, watching them now. So that's the difference. I'm a little bit behind, but the interesting thing is I started everything off with Exorcist because I was
Starting off light.
well, for me, yeah, it was pretty late, but
What?
well, the funny thing is, I was like, I've seen this like a long time ago, but I don't remember it very well. And I started watching it and I realized I have never seen this movie before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was like, wait, what happens? Wait, when is the Exorcist going to occur? Oh, here it is. Okay. Wait, what is he doing? He jumped out a window. All right. That's cool. So, yeah.
Spoiler. Jeez.
Come on. We're like 40, 50 years out now.
That's just about
45,
probably,
47
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
I think that was 73.
That sounds
You guys
right.
had your chance. Spoiler alert. There's an exorcism. My God.
Not to sound too shitty about it, but we've seen it.
No, I'm telling the audience. I'm not telling you.
Okay.
Come on.
They have also seen it,
Oh,
Vanessa.
my God. You know what?
The real question is, did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you wonder what all the fuss was about?
I did really like it a lot, but I'm a huge sucker for 1970s horror cinema anyway, like Wicker Man and other 70s horror
Omen,
films.
Texas
Omen.
Chainsaw.
Yeah,
Last
Texas
House.
Chainsaw's good. What's the one with the little girl in the red coat?
Oh, that's an awesome one. One of your favorites, isn't it?
Or are we talking about Don't Look Now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't Look Now.
That's a great
that's
film.
one of my tops.
Don't Look Back, Don't Look Now.
Don't Look Now.
I think it's Don't Look Now, yeah.
Yeah,
With
Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, that's really good.
So I'm already like a huge fan of that style and that time and the kind of storytelling way, Rosemary's Baby, all that kind of stuff where there's almost like a weird hippie tint to a lot of this stuff, or it's an alternative viewpoint. It's all these kind of different things where they're experimenting with cinema or they're experimenting with story. And I definitely dug it, especially having gone to Catholic school for 8 years.
Oh,
I was like, yeah, this is a cool priest. He's pretty hip. I like
pretty
this guy. He would have been good. I wish I had had that priest at my school. That would have been nice.
Easy on the eyes, too.
Yeah, I would. That is 100% not what I was thinking. But I'm glad you feel that way. I'm glad you enjoyed the film on that level.
I do. That actor, of course, is the father of Jason Patrick from The Lost Boys.
Oh.
And also the father of Joshua Miller, who played the creepy kid vampire in Near Dark.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And his wife, she was one of the women in Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
Oh, cool.
really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's Hollywood royalty right there.
No
Good grief,
kidding.
man.
That is crazy.
From every end of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it was definitely very enjoyable, but I didn't realize, and I think a lot of people know, that the scariest parts of that film are not the exorcism and are
Right.
not the moments where
Right.
there's
Yeah.
I didn't expect that element where I felt like every time they were trying to work out what was going on with the girl and taking her to doctors and all these different experiments on her, that was the horrible, horrible situation. I was just like, oh my God, stop. No. What if she has an attack while you have the thing in her? Oh my God, she's going to get ripped in half. Please don't stick her with that thing. Oh no. There's a lot of tension.
The actor that played the doctor giving her the MRI scan was later captured as a serial killer and had been killing women through that period.
Oh my God.
That's a little wild, isn't it?
What?
The more you know.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
for
there's a
real?
lot to dig into on The Exorcist.
Whoa. I mean, I knew a lot about The Omen because I'd seen it plus the documentary. So I knew there was like a lot of like dark stuff surrounding that film. But
Yeah.
with Exorcist, I'd kind of heard there might be a few things around it, but I just
I'd say Exorcist, Omen, and Poltergeist seem to be three of the top
ones.
for weird shit that
happens.
has been involved with their stuff.
This makes me want to ask you, have you seen The Exorcist 3 then?
No.
You probably just feel fine to skip Exorcist 2.
You would have to skip Exorcist 2.
Exorcist 3
It's
is
fucking awful. I mean,
yeah.
it's bonkers in a kind of fun way, but it would turn you off of watching another Exorcist film because you'd think, oh, is this what happened to it?
Yeah.
So 3 is like worthwhile.
3 is
I think 3
Three's
is excellent.
very
really?
good.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
And
one of the
out.
I'd say one of the premier jump scares in cinema.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
now I'm
I
not
agree.
going to jump because I know it's coming.
No, you
You'll
won't.
It's got George C. Scott in it, and
Yeah.
you know that I'm
Does
a
that
fan of George C. Scott. Paul loves Fox.
Oh my God.
Also, then you
That's
should
all I
check
think
out.
about every time I hear like George C. Scott's going to be in a movie. I just hear you doing that over and over again.
My very bad George C. Scott impersonation.
It's great.
You should also check out the first season of the Exorcist TV series then too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is
that was
really
really
good.
solid.
Really good.
When was that
Read
recent?
nothing about it. Just watch it.
It's a couple years old now, maybe 2015.
Something like that. Was it
I'll add
Fox?
this- I'll add
I think
this
to my-
It
Fox,
was
yeah.
Fox, yeah.
It's one of those where you're watching it and you're like, I don't know if I like this or not, but trust me, like episode 5,
Yes.
it locks in and you're like, oh fuck, how did I not see what was happening here?
That's
Very good.
exciting.
Very good.
I did watch the first episode of Marianne.
What did you think of that?
I had to stop. I was home alone in my cabin in the woods with the fire going late at night.
Oh, man.
I couldn't handle it. I had to stop. Like I got to the end of the first episode.
This pleases me.
Oh, it was too much. It was just
Got
way
to
too
watch
much.
this.
It was like it was just really freaking me out. And
Naked old people is horrifying.
no, it is. It is, especially ones who like get it on at various points. It's just suddenly a whole new level of freaky.
Well, I wish that you had at least started the second episode because that's when the first
could-
really scary
That's when it
scene
really gets scary.
No, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Not until I have like sunlight or other people around. 'Cause
Oh man, I am so happy to hear this.
you're slowly ruining my life. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I have that effect on every woman I know. I watched brand new on Netflix In the Tall Grass.
Oh, how
so you
was
did
that? I
get
saw
that.
the trailer on loop when I
Yeah,
didn't
of
change it,
course.
so it just kept happening over and over
Oh,
again.
yeah.
Based very loosely on the Joe Hill and Stephen King short story. I thought it was rather dull and uninspired.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's got Patrick Wilson in it. How do you
Jeez, man.
not have the greatest horror movie ever with Patrick Wilson? I mean, he's so good. It's got an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
The short story is very simple. They decided to complicate the fuck out of this one,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't think that it works. So
That's too bad.
I really loved like the premise where there's just a bunch of grass and time and everything is going out the
I
window.
always like a
and
movie
there's-
about a lot of grass.
you and Tommy Chung.
That's right.
No, tall, scary grass. Have you been in a cornfield at night? It's scary. It's real scary.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So
That's not grass.
I'm pretty new to that. It's very similar. They both grow out of the ground. It's basically grass.
It's not a serial killer.
It has a
Argue with
husk.
that. Oh God.
I'm sure serial killers live in corn as much as in grass.
No, that's a slasher type of thing.
Or is this, you know what? Serial killers might enjoy corn as well.
That's
We
true.
don't know.
That's true.
We
They-
should ask them which they would like to hang out in, to attack the people walking past. Do you prefer
keep talking,
tall
Vanessa.
grass or corn? Your choice. The world must know.
Well, I saw one. One that you'd recommended. Sort
Oh,
of.
really?
Sort of.
Oh,
Pokemon Detective.
yes. Detective Pikachu.
It's adorable.
It's so good. Oh my god, it's so like lighthearted. It's like, I didn't make it all the way to the end because my plane landed, but I would love to know what you thought.
Well worth watching. Totally enjoyable. It needs a little more Pokemon battles or something like that, But
Are you a fan of the Pokemon?
not particularly.
Oh, okay, no, me neither. I
did the Pokemon Go game for a little while.
Oh, sure. I did it till I realized they didn't build anything on my island. I could just walk around and nothing would happen. My phone just died
Didn't find any dead bodies or anything like that.
in the grass.
But yeah, Ryan Reynolds having fun, being a talking little yellow Pikachu
So
is
good. It's so good. And then they go back to the Pikachu going, Pika, Pika. And you're just like, this is
can't understand what I'm saying, man.
no one
Only
knows.
you.
You're the only one who gets it.
So
Oh, I'm so glad you checked it out.
yes, it was fun. I had a couple of very mature films show up.
Oh boy, is this going to be a Smurf sequel discussion or?
Luckily, not quite that bad. Thank you for elevating what I'm about to say just a little bit. Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Oh, I know nothing of this.
You're on a Titans kick, and you thought, "Well, I haven't seen this episode."
How to describe what it is? This group sort of attached to Letterboxd that I signed up with that is like a movie roulette thing.
Oh, okay.
And you go to some number generating thing and it gives you a number 1 through 1,797. And of all the films on there, I think I got the only cartoon. And I don't have a problem with cartoons. And this is fine. It's fun. But what it does really well is make fun of how much better the Justice League and stuff like that is than the Teen Titans. You haven't seen this one? I could have sworn you talked about this at some point.
I started watching it.
Okay. How far did you get?
Are you telling me that you finished watching it?
Yeah, I was doing other shit, but I did finish it.
You should have done other shit like watch a different movie.
See, but the best parts come later when they really start to realize that they're kind of useless as heroes and everybody else is making fun of them, so they dance their way to victory.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh.
That
Go-
sounds like
if you want something cute and adorable, watch Pokemon Detective.
Wait a
Pikachu.
second. You can then answer with Pokemon Detective or Detective Pikachu. Isn't that what it's called?
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Adult?
Adult enough. Ryan Reynolds and plays enough mature concepts that it works.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. It's not the kind of thing you couldn't have your kids watch, but it didn't feel like it was a specifically kids movie, which I really liked about it. It felt like when Ryan Reynolds was talking, you were in the fun movie, and then it would occasionally go to like Pokemon battles and nods towards dumb Pokemon stuff. And I was like, yeah, cool. Let's move on. Let's get back to sassy, adorable, tiny yellow creature.
Ryan Reynolds coming out of a Pokemon.
Well, I can't wait to not watch either of these movies, you guys.
Hurts my core.
Yeah, whatever, man. I know you watch cartoons.
I watch cool cartoons, okay?
You watch a lot of them.
What's your favorite cartoon?
How horrifying was it to wake up in Portland and be like flipping through the channels on Saturday going, well, what do kids watch? It was all news and everything. I was like, this sucks.
It's because they have dedicated channels.
Yeah.
I know,
Or
but what if you
YouTube.
don't want to watch Teen Titans Go or whatever was playing on Cartoon Network at that time?
There's like 5 Cartoon Network channels.
Oh,
Which
is there?
one?
Well,
There's
not
4
in
Disney.
your average motel, and definitely not in this one.
Well, that's true.
Shout out to the Banfield. We had a hole in the door of our bathroom.
What?
It's not the first time this has happened. when
It didn't go all the way through, though, this time, so that was
So,
nice.
In their defense, it could have been somebody had maybe like slipped and bashed their head against the door.
Oh, good. Or somebody punched it.
Or somebody was trying to get to their wife who had locked themselves in the door because
That's-
they were in murderous rage or something.
Definitely, most likely. Yeah.
They had art on the wall. There's 2 pieces of art. It was the same piece. One was turned upside down.
Yeah, Eric had to point out, hey, did you see what they did with that other piece of art? And I was like, oh, it matches. And he's like, it's the same piece upside down. Man, it's not like that would have been cheaper. That's
the same
That's
price.
just the element of laziness there is so strong that they're
Yeah,
not
like-
going to look for a different print.
That's right.
They're like, we have 50 rooms. Let's just get 100 of this picture.
That's the same one,
Done
yeah.
and done. It's versatile.
Yes, we're still reeling from our trip to to Portland for the Lovecraft Film
Yes.
Festival. I
Well,
saw
yeah,
a very cool movie.
Oh, okay.
good.
It's on Shudder right now. It's brand new. It's called Beelzebub.
Oh, okay. Beelzebeth.
Beelzebub.
Buth. Okay. Buth.
This, you guys, this is like low rent. It is super low budge, but that just kind of adds to the creepy factor because it's a really serious, disturbing story about these adults who are starting to go on these kind of not sprees exactly. Well, it'd be like, like a school shooting type thing or stuff like that.
Fun outing with the friends.
Yeah, and everyone they're killing are kids.
Holy crap.
Okay.
I mean, the opening scene is this woman going into a maternity ward and stabbing all the brand new babies.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
And then slitting her throat. And I was like, okay, so this is what I'm in for. And at that point, I was like looking at the time, and I was like, do I have enough time to get involved in this? Because normally what happens is I'll put on a movie at about 8, and then I'll fall asleep at about 8:07. And
You and I run very different schedules.
I watched the entire thing. It turns out, without giving too much away, the new Christ child has been reborn, and there is a demon that is taking it upon himself to try and destroy it. But he doesn't know who it is.
Which one it is.
So he's possessing these people to do these murderous acts. And it's got, who's the guy, the actor from the Saw franchise? Is that Tobin Bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got him as kind of a investigating priest. And he's got some, they made some interesting choices with the way he looks in this. But it is super low budget. Fuck, it was creepy and disturbing. And at the end of it, I really loved it. It was one of those ones where I thought, this was solid enough. How come somebody didn't have another $1 million to drop into this budget? Somebody should have, and you know why, is because this is a very disturbing thing, and I'm sure they thought, well, this is not going to do well in theaters, so we're not giving it a real budget.
Can you imagine the Christians would be like freaking out?
Oh my God.
They'd be picketing.
Or people who like children, maybe even. Not me. I was like, oh, it's one of these kind of movies.
Well,
poured myself a glass of wine and settled in.
Slaughtering the innocents is very biblical.
Mankind continues, Kelly. I'm just saying, perhaps there's something inside of you that should want reproduction to exist.
No, I don't care how mankind continues. Once we're dead, we're dead. And so once I'm dead, I won't care if the rest of these people
This is a luxury of the modern age. That's all I'm going to say. If we were in like caveman times, you have like 15 kids by now.
You want them to do your work.
Exactly. They need to like hoist you around when you're old.
I'd be like, Ragnar, get away from my toys.
That's my stone wheel. It's shiny. I found it first.
Go out and mow the dirt.
Make fire.
Anyway, Beelzebub is on Shudder right now, and it's creepy.
Nice.
I liked
It
it.
sounds very biblical. Like that's definitely a Bible story.
I was not expecting. I mean, I guess I should have expected it based on, it's got the devil in it, but I didn't realize it was going to go so religious.
The way you're saying the title, it almost sounds like it should have been sort of a comedy.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I was like, what is Beelzebub? And I'm sure that, someone like Craig is going to have, all the names of all the demons, or Matt Fora, who recognized
He will know.
When he was watching Hereditary, he knew where it was going because he recognized the symbol on the pole.
No, there's only one of you, and you're it. That's insanity right there.
So I didn't recognize the name, and I did also think, oh, well, maybe this is going to be some kind of a silly thing.
Yeah.
But boy, that first scene.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Wow, it's funny too because like when I saw the title pop up, and I think my brain just went, oh, like Beelzebub. Like, oh, it's gonna be like a really silly like girl falls into like hanging out with the devil or gets some kind of evil powers.
Sure.
It was I'm surprised to
Click
hear
on
this.
buy.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that I didn't assume that and then watch it, because that would have been very like, wait a minute, what's happening?
How about you? Got another one there?
Actually, it's funny. So I've been watching all these different horror films. So I've been tempering them almost each night with something of the opposite value. So I've seen some really silly, horrible rom-coms I've been putting off for many years. So I finally watched Lake House. That one's been on the deck for a very long time.
I think I know that one. Is that?
Oh, that's
Keanu Reeves.
It is Keanu Reeves? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock also. in
Yeah,
that
Sandra
one.
Bullock, Keanu Reeves before the Keanu fever came upon us.
The return of the speed couple. This is them 20 years later or something.
Kind of, yeah, I didn't even put that together. That's probably the exact selling point of that film.
I'm going to let this fly that you're talking about this because I haven't seen it, but I do believe there's like some kind of time travel component.
Yeah, there is. So
It's genre.
thank you. I'm glad I'm getting away with this because I'm surprised and I did not expect this. But yeah, so basically, it's nice because there is a time difference. Like, she lives 2 years in the future from him, but they address it immediately and they just accept it as fact, and it's kind of neat. So like at one point, she's like, "There's no trees on the street, and I really miss the trees from my neighborhood." And all of a sudden, he gets the letter, so he goes and plants a tree, and then there's just a giant tree that shows up, and she's like, "Yeah,
Should have been standing 2 feet to the left.
It does barely miss her. I will say, but yeah, it was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad you guys just rolled with this premise. Like, they just were like, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're going for it all the way. It's not a good movie. I will
Based
say,
on a book, isn't it?
God knows,
Oh,
probably.
Sure. Nicholas Sparks or something like that.
Yeah,
There
some
you go.
kind of crap. But I mean, like, but for my
Nora
uterus,
Roberts.
it was great. It was exactly what I needed. I mean, I wouldn't say it's at all a good film, and anyone should ever watch it. But yeah, it really filled that spot from after watching all these crazy. After watching like All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which I'm not even gonna get into, but
Are you guys?
it tempered it.
Are you familiar with the Between Two Ferns
Yes.
interview series? And now there's a movie on
Yeah.
on Netflix.
What's
He interviews Keanu, and he's talking to Keanu about a scar that Keanu has, and he says, "I've got a scar right here," and he shows him a scar on his leg, and Keanu says, "From what?" He goes, "I got up and walked out of the lake house, bumped my knee against the back of a chair."
Yeah.
I think if you go on that show, you know what you're going to get.
The only problem with that, I mean, the movie is awful, but the interviews are hilarious. And then the only problem is they show outtakes of the interviews at the end credits.
Oh.
And you see that they're all in
It
on it, and
breaks
they're
the
all
wall.
cracking up. And it's just like, oh, I didn't need to see that everyone was okay with this.
Yeah.
That's sort of like what reading your own mean tweets thing that one of the late night shows does. Let's see. Okay, fine. I'll redeem myself a little bit. I watched in preparation for tonight's subject. Feels weird to say that. I watched the Japanese film Shudder. Not on Shudder, unfortunately, but on
That's
Netflix.
so awkward.
And not even spelled the same way.
Oh, come
No,
on.
yeah,
Shudder.
Shutter on Shudder.
Pull it together. This is a missed opportunity.
So I've got a few notes about it because I was considering it. Did all right in reviews, 58, 78 for the Rotten Tomatoes rating. So crowd liked it more. But it was the top grossing movie in Thailand in 2004. Where it was
Nice.
actually, it's Thailand film, not Japanese. And make almost $7 million worldwide off of a $800,000 budget.
Wow.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's well done. It shows its budget at a few times. There are several scenes that I'm like, whoa, yeah, needed a little bit more to make this fully realized. But the idea is a young photographer and his girlfriend see this weird shadow in some of the photos he's taking at a wedding, trying to figure out what's going on with a tragic accident and stuff like that. Overall, it's a relatively slow film, pretty dark, but the end makes the whole movie. There's such an awesome explanation of what all's going on that you're like, okay, this is totally worth watching this whole kind of okay movie for just this ending.
I'm wondering if that movie that just came out like last year, the year before, where the girl takes the pictures with the Polaroid and then people slowly die in the photos or whatever, is that at all related to this? It's okay.
No.
So it is just closer to that Goosebumps cheese and say die book. Okay, sorry, just
Which
a small tangent here.
What movie is this?
There's some terrible. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it's this like teen horror film where a girl finds from her mother's collection a Polaroid and she starts using it to take pictures of people, and the people get like spots on their face or whatever, and that means they're next, and
All right.
something is after them.
7 days. Your picture will fade. And so will you. All right.
That's the only voice that's coming out of there.
Anything else we should move on to, or are we ready for our picks for the week?
Yeah, why don't we take a little break, hear from our sponsors, and we will be back with our picks for Asian horror.
The Shogun Warriors. Guy King with rocket boosters. Great Mazinga with rocket launcher.
Look, it's Godzilla!
Is he friend or foe? You can decide.
Wow.
Launch his claw. Imagine his breath is a blast of fire.
Good warning!
The large Shogun Warriors and Godzilla. They're ready to strike when you are. The Shogun Warriors, Great Mazinga, Guy King, and Godzilla, each sold separately. Accessories not for use with smaller Shogun Warriors from Mattel.
And we are back. This was my topic pick this time.
Yes.
And I picked Asian horror because of, if I recall, it was because I watched I Saw the Devil and was reminded of how cool we had that string of years where it was just like, man, we're really being introduced to something new. Then everybody realized that, and we tried to remake all of those movies, and we completely...
To complete success.
Yeah, completely
Everyone's
missed
amazing.
what made them cool.
There's a couple successes, but boy, it wasn't many.
Dark Water, great.
Oh, God.
Woody remade the movie that I am picking, but I have news at the end of all of this.
What could that be?
I'm at the edge of my wooden chair.
Well, sit back a little bit. This is going to be a while.
Okay.
So I chose the movie Uzumaki from 2000.
びっくりしたみたいだね。怒ったのかい？びっくりさせるのは僕の趣味なんだ。
渦巻き模様は人の目を中心に引きつける力がある。目を集めてくるんだ。溢れ返った渦巻きを見ている親父はよかった。私はね。
しかしクローズ町での怪奇現象はこれだけではなかったのです。
この街ももう終わりだ。
Also known as Spiral in the U.S. or Vortex. Got two American names. This was directed by Akihiro Higuchi, who did a movie called Long Dream and Tokyo 10+01. He also wrote Long Dream and Tokyo 10+01. And then that's all, apparently. It's like, what,
really?
Yeah, what happened to this director? It was written by Kengo Kasi, who wrote Tokyo Gore Police, Samurai Princess, a bunch of Ultraman, stuff like that. Everything that you would expect, the guy who wrote this. But it is based on the manga by Junji Ito. You guys know that name?
It sounds really familiar.
If you are on Facebook and you have seen like those pulled apart cross sections of human faces, or the young Japanese girls who are like cutting their arms into slices of bologna and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's this guy. And he is responsible for all of the creepy mangas that we know and love. He did Tomi, I believe it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is based on one of his manga also, and just a ton of other shit. So he's a very, very popular horror manga artist. This had a budget of $1 million, and I could find no box office numbers for it. So I don't know why they are being stingy with those numbers. It must have done something well over there, I would think. And then they did this weird thing where they released it simultaneously in San Francisco and Japan, and that was because San Francisco had a very high internet usage, and they thought that somehow targeting this area of people who are using the web would relate to a good sale thing, I guess.
think that makes perfect sense because around that time you're getting things like Blair Witch Project where it's really targeted marketing. You know, it's like, hey, these people are into these things. They'll be freaked out by this particular scenario. Let's release it. Release the hounds.
It's a good idea, except there is no tie to any kind of internet or web-based horror.
Yeah, I was when you said that, I'm going, were they afraid it'd get downloaded more in San Francisco or something?
Some kind of like situations, for instance, San Francisco that.
I don't know. I don't know exactly why, but this was part of their plan was to release it simultaneously in San Francisco. It is not highly regarded, believe it or not. The critics on Rotten Tomatoes have it at 56%. The audience has it at 57%.
Wow.
So it's not considered fresh. It stars Eriko Hatsune, who was in the live-action Gotcha Man series. Now, Gotcha Man, you may not know, but G-Force, you would know. And when I saw there was a live-action Gotcha Man, I was like, how did I fucking miss this? She was also in Apartment 303 and a ton of other films, genre and non-genre. Very famous author over there, or actor. Also, Fi Fan, who I could find no other information on. And Hinaku Saiki, who was in Raisin, which is the sequel to Ring over there.
Oh, okay.
Or Rasen, maybe? I don't know. Rasen. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced.
They don't call it Ringu 2.
By the way, I did have a chuckle as I was writing all these names down, and I was like, holy shit, I might have picked maybe the hardest topic for Eric. So I can't wait for all of the names on yours.
It might not be so bad. It seems to be the Swiss and that area that's the really bad ones. So we'll see how it goes.
Next topic is going to be Swiss horror.
Midsummer.
I know. I was like, is there any?
I know that Eric has seen this. Vanessa, have you seen this film?
I have not. It actually, I've been jumping on Letterboxd and creating these little mini lists for movies that are appropriate for each week. And I came across the movie at that point and read a little snippet on it. And it sounded interesting.
It's good. Is a good way to
premise.
describe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is interesting. It follows a young girl who finds that her tiny town is slowly becoming obsessed with spirals. And so the townspeople are completely distracted by anything that has a spiral. If it's them stirring their soup and then, pulling the spoon out, they'll just start watching the soup spinning that way. Coffee, the same thing. Snails, if they come across a snail, they're just like entranced. Everything stops. And the father of her friend is really becoming obsessed with all this stuff until up to the point where he commits suicide by winding himself in a washing machine.
Ooh.
That's one of these scenes I definitely remember.
Yes, to become a spiral himself.
Yes.
From there, it really starts taking off. His wife is hospitalized because she has cut off all of her hair because it had curls in it, and her fingertips because, your fingerprints have spirals in them. She ends up killing herself in the hospital after her husband's ghost tells her that there's a spiral inside her brain. Oh, also, this fucking squirmy, spirally millipede crawls into her ear and into her brain, and it's fucking horrifying. Meanwhile, this girl is just trying to get through life, and she's going to high school still while all this weird shit is going on. Well, the high school
Japanese movie, so yeah, come on.
The high school has gone insane too. So these are all twitchy and distracted by everything. The students are starting to grow gigantic snail shells, and they're starting to climb the outside of the school and everything. Yes. And one of the students is just walking very slowly, like at a snail's pace. And then she turns into a big snail. My favorite scene, though, is the one kind of bitchy, what would you call her? The mean girl in school.
Yeah.
Her hair. Do you remember the scene with her hair?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Her hair starts kind of taking on a life of its own, kind of Medusa-like and everything, and it starts getting all these spirals and everything. There's one scene where she's walking down the hallway, and she's got all of her mean girls behind her and everything, but her hair is taking up the entire rest of the hallway. It's like brushing against the ceiling and spirals and all the sides of the walls and everything. It's fucking insane. And this is the strength of this movie, is it's got these amazing scenes. Other than that, not a lot is really happening. Oh, one of my other favorite scenes. Our hero has a stalker who eventually throws himself in a suicide thing, throws himself in front of a car and gets twisted around the axle of the car.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So, so there's all of these amazing things going on, and then it kind of has zero resolution. Basically, our girl is left there with the town. I mean, the entire town has been taken over by this.
Spiraling out of control.
She is the only person who hasn't had any of this weird stuff happen to her body and everything. And so you're waiting for her to okay.
Is she like a dreaming?
Well,
or like...
I remember how I felt watching it. We saw this down at the HP Lovecraft Film Festival back in 2001 or 2. And I remember thinking, well, this is clearly building up to her finding a way to stop this and saving her town or something. But that is not what happens. We are left with her kind of alone in the town, and we don't know really what happens with her.
Oh.
So
I remember it being an interesting movie and fun to watch, but I also don't have any impression of it as a story left in me at all.
Yeah, and I remember thinking that I loved it. Upon rewatch, I was still entranced. The visuals are really, really neat. Yeah. But the story left a lot to be desired, and that's got to be where the Rotten Tomatoes score is coming from. They do have some really neat editing things they do. If you're watching, you'll see like the edge of the screen start to twist a little bit.
Oh, and
visually, it's really striking. And it was based on the manga, but shot before the manga had finished. So the ending is very different, I guess. And I have not read the manga, so I don't know what the difference is. But, it could be that it had an amazing ending, and that's why Junji Ito has gone on to such success, and the movie has not.
I feel like this calls for like a field trip to the comic store to figure out how this thing actually ends.
Have you heard of eBay?
Oh, well.
Or Amazon?
I mean, I like to support local businesses, but whatever.
Okay.
That's fair.
We live in Seattle. Amazon is a local business.
Oh my God.
You should have seen her eyes just roll right out of her head.
Flames.
Oh my God. No. Comics Dungeon, they need your help even if they're jerks. One of the guys there is nice. One of the guys is mean.
Yeah.
But no, because I've seen the books and I've been told not to read them because they're like too much. By this guy.
Interesting.
But I think it would actually be really, really fun to like have a little dive in and
So
see what's what.
Pick one of them off the shelf and smack him in the head with it and go, sell this to me, you shit.
Yeah, well, I've got a story, but I don't know if it's
appropriate for air.
Well, so the movie, did not knock my socks off. As you can see, my socks are clearly fully on my feet.
Can't tell you're wearing jeans
and
your shoes.
Let me just take these off. Eric's eyes just rolled. But I thought this was very interesting in my research. It is being turned into a full animated series in 2020 and will air on Cartoon Network before being released in Japan.
What?
Weird.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre.
I saw the trailer for it, and right now it's just a couple of moving images from the comic book, but it is supposedly going to be a black and white cartoon that will look like the art of Junji Ito. So,
holy crap.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by this.
Jeez.
Well, it's crazy to me that it would be on Cartoon Network instead of like Netflix, who did Castlevania.
Yeah, doesn't Cartoon Network have like a
they've got their
Toonami or something? Isn't it? They have a Japanese animation
You're right.
block.
They do. They have some kind of association with.
So I'm guessing that they're actually paying for it.
Right.
If they're...
But why America before? I guess we have a lot of obsessed kids.
Because I think Cartoon Network is paying for it. I think this is a Cartoon Network original.
Wow. Okay, that'll be fascing.
That sounds really cool, especially if they're going to go in his style. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. So there you go. That was my pick. Uzumaki.
I guess we'll kind of make it a theme thing. I'll go next because I don't think this one's been remade either.
Oh, okay.
2 that haven't been remade, and we'll finish with a good one that has been.
Oh, okay.
Not so well remade, but remade. So I chose the movie The Wailing.
이렇게 소문이 바다한 말이요. 무슨 이유가 있는 거요. 이유가.
요새 자꾸 동네에서 사람 죽어나가는 거. 그놈이랑 뭔 연관이 있는 거요. 싹 다 그 양반이 오거나 생긴 일들 아니오. 여기다 뭔 일이 다냐 그래.
요소 다 죽어버렸어.
직접 본 거야?
한번 봤지.
맞는가?
이 뭐가 이제 이거 뭐야 이거?
아따.
자네 며칠 전에 만나면 안 되는 것을 만난 적 있지? 아내가 그곳을 건드려 버렸어?
똑같대요 증상이. 사람들이. 그놈이 자꾸 눈에 뵈는 것은 그놈이 자꾸 찾아갖고 뵈는 것이라.
Which is a South Korean and United States production with featuring Korean and Japanese language.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a eclectic mix to a certain extent.
But it's fairly recent. It's actually 2016, so it's quite a bit past the giant flood of Asian horror films that hit earlier in the century.
Right. I didn't specify a time period. Mm-hmm. This definitely qualifies.
This is on Shudder, so it's very easy to see. It is long. It's like 2.5 hours.
It's on Shudder now, huh?
Because it was Netflix.
Yeah. And it's how long?
It's like 2.5 hours.
I think it's 3 hours, actually, because I watched about half of it. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
Oh, I watched the full thing. I didn't realize it was 3 hours or 2.5.
It's long.
Yeah, it's 2:36.
He's got the facts in front of him. Can't
Despite
argue.
Kelly's feeling about it, the Rotten Tomatoes ratings are 99 and 81 for this one.
Goodness. Wow.
It had a $6.4 million budget and made almost $50 million worldwide.
Wow.
It did quite well. Okay, let's see how this goes. Directed and written by Hong Jim Na. That seems close. Who directed The Chaser and The Yellow Sea. And I think I've seen The Yellow Sea. That one seems familiar. And starring Do Won Kwak, The Man from Nowhere, and Ghost Sweepers, which sounds like an episode of Supernatural. Yoon Kunimura, Kill Bill, Shin Godzilla, Ichi the Killer, and a crap ton of other stuff. He's been in a ton of stuff. Yong Min Hwang, road movie. I don't know. Woo Hee Chun. There we go. Those are all the names I had written down.
Well, I expected you to stop after the first one, starring this person. And that's all you need to know.
So that wasn't too bad. So anyways, the basic storyline is a stranger arrives in a smaller town and mysterious sickness starts spreading through the village. And there's a local policeman who gets involved in trying to figure out what's going on. Largely, and he becomes deeper involved when his daughter becomes infected with whatever has been very violently causing people to kill people in horrifically violent manners. The opening scene is like, yay, fairly brutal. It's got scenes that start out going, why is this in this movie at all? And by the end, you're going, oh, I totally get why that scene is in this movie now. It's extremely well shot. It's a well-directed film. It's all low, small town Korea. So I don't know how relative I don't know the accuracy. It's not like I lived in Korea. Sorry. But it seems good.
Apologize. Every place you've never lived.
That's right. It's going to be a long list. I'll say that a lot throughout the podcast.
Every time anyone mentions a new place, you have to apologize.
Sorry, I haven't lived there. I don't have firsthand knowledge, and yet I'm speaking on this subject. And there's weird stories, like this cop tells this story that just seems ridiculous and stupid, but by the end you find out it's very important and really an interesting story. It is a I hope this isn't spoiling too much. It's kind of a ghost story, but it's a part of the fun of watching foreign films is you get different cultural takes on what things are. Right. And this is a very different take on a ghost. Very unique. And I don't really think I've seen a ghost portrayed quite this way in a film before. They're very real. Yes, they're angry spirits that are very real in what they do. And there's a lot going on that appears to be something else. Horrible mistakes are made by this police officer.
This is like the most generic telling of a film I have ever heard you do.
Yeah,
like, I'm trying to follow this going, what happens in this movie?
Yeah, I was trying to remember it because I've seen it. And I was like, wait, what happens in this movie? I know.
Well, it starts out and there's a big giant slaughter and there's blood all over the place and the guy's throwing up and
I don't remember.
The cop comes in and he's kind of a doughy little dorky cop that every other cops are making fun of, partially because he's just kind of a dork. But he becomes the central character as things move on and everybody else starts to fall apart. Of course, he has to come forward, and there's another neat little scene that seems like nothing, and by the end it's like, wow, that's really relevant, where they're guarding the house where the slaughter happens, and there's this woman sitting 20, 30 feet away just kind of chucking rocks at him. Just sort of being a pain in the ass for no real reason, until you find out later there's a very real reason she's there and why she's being a pain in the ass to the cops that pays off really well. I'm being sort of vague for that reason because there's a lot of weird setups for no reason that actually pay off really well. Like the story the cop tells the other cop is about a guy running through the woods, or excuse me, a guy hunting, and he sees a guy running through the woods, so he decides to follow, see what the guy's up with, and he sees this guy tackle a deer and tear it apart and start eating the deer there. I'm going, interesting story. What's it have to do with that? And as the movie goes on, you see, oh, I see exactly what that story had to do with what's going on. So it's really well told in that it does a lot of setups that at the time seem trivial or unimportant, but eventually roll around to being key scenes in the movie. Man, interesting you had the exorcism on your list this year, because this movie has the coolest damn exorcism scenes as far as they're almost like action scenes. Where the guy's like these people on the sides drumming on things and he's yelling and throwing things around, and it's just like, holy shit, like pulling off big knives and cutting things open and fire and all kinds of shit. It's like, that's how you do an exorcism. Like, Jesus. Part of a spoilery thing is the guy who does the exorcism realizes he screwed up, and because ghosts are so weird in this Korean storyline, he misinterpreted who he was going after. So he realizes he totally screwed up the whole thing and made things much, much worse by his ritual. So then the cop has to deal with more, and the daughter is getting worse. Very similar to exorcism in that she's yelling and swearing and throwing up and doing all kinds of gross shit. That's kind of similar to The Exorcist. And they do a dueling magic scene. That's just like, holy shit. I don't fully know what happened in the film, to be honest. I mean, the payoffs are all there, but at the same time going, I think I know how this resolved, but I'm also not entirely certain I could tell you how it resolved. But it's a great journey to go on, I thought. I really enjoyed the progression of the character, the way he moves to become sort of a useless cop to the really important cop to not really being a cop at all. What you think is going on is not going on, and it all resolves quite each moment. There's a lot of moments where you're like, oh, that's really cool. Shit, that's really cool. 2.5 hours for most any movie tends to push it a little bit. There's enough of those moments that you're going, all right, I can keep watching this. And if nothing else, check out this movie for the exorcism scenes. There's 2 of them, and they're both batshit crazy.
I think I even made it to the exorcism.
They're near the end.
I definitely made it to the. It's funny because I don't remember half of what you're saying, but I totally remember the exorcisms for sure. Like that, I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I remember that happening for real. I don't remember any of the rest of this that you're saying. Maybe I was only half paying attention and reading some of the subtitles.
Yeah, that is the drawback of reading a subtitled movie. Oh, I got a text. Oh, damn it.
Rewinds.
Definitely recommend it. Just check it out. It's on Shudder. So if all you want to do is watch the exorcism scenes, you can just fast forward till you see some guy railing around with drums and fire and things flying all over the place, because that's pretty cool.
Nice. Hey, Vanessa.
Yeah.
The only rule for this was that you could not pick Ring or The Grudge. So which of those films was your choice?
this will be shocking, but I actually picked The Eye.
The sensation that swept Asia has come to haunt America. Between what you see and what you sense, between what you know and what you fear, there's always more than meets the eye. The Eye.
I know I obeyed the rules.
All right.
For at least one time.
Tell us about The Eye.
The Eye, aka Jin Guai. It's a Hong Kong/Singapore production, 2002. Although some websites say it came out in 2003, which is kind of interesting. It actually is kind of sort of well received. 64% Rotten Tomatoes from critics, 72% audience. So some
good.
people out there like it well enough.
I like this one quite a bit, actually.
I remember liking this one too. It's pretty good.
It's an interesting film. So I've seen, I remember that period that we're kind of delving into when Asian horror became like a big deal. And in fact, I bought this film in like 2003, 2004 in England. And so I've just had it for so long because I'm terrified of movies where there's like eye violence.
Wait a second. Is this your first time watching it?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Remind me, is this Quay Brothers? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the Pang brothers.
Oh, the Pang Brothers. Okay.
Yeah. So it was really interesting because I was expecting something really ultra violent and really crazy, frenetic. And I think my expectations were really high. Like the DVD box that I have has like a slip cover where you pull it out and the eye comes through. And it just, I actually took a picture of that because I think that's probably the scariest part of the film. But not that that's a bad thing. So just to give you a little bit more info on it before I dive in, it's 98 minutes long, although there's 4 different runtime listed on IMDb, so I'm guessing there's quite a few different versions of this movie.
Are they major differences in runtime?
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, I think there's 10 to 20 minute differences.
Do you know which? Did you watch one of the longer ones or one of the shorter ones?
I watched whichever one. Tartan Asian Extreme released in the UK.
That's probably one of the longer ones then.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like, I don't know what they would have left out, but there could have been any number of kind of like eerie events. It was made for 4.5 million SGD. I don't know what kind of dollar that is. Singapore gold dollars. I don't know. But
we pride ourselves on our deep dive research.
I only have so much Googling I can do in a day. Right?
SGD. Nope, too much.
Anyway, it made $12 million, so there you go.
Nice.
Worldwide. So that was great. It's directed by Danny Pang and Oxide Chung Pang, and the Pang brothers, who have made a number of films together. And it's kind of crazy. They're twins.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is kind of, I don't know, it's nuts to me. And they started off with, Oxide was a colorist, and Danny was an editor. In fact, Danny had edited Infernal Affairs, which I was pretty shocked about because that's an amazing movie. But
I've not heard of it, but what a great title. Infernal Affairs. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's super good. It's not, is that the one that The Departed is based off? Anyway.
Oh, the Scorsese film?
Yeah. I might be based off Infernal Affairs. Yeah. So it's really great. I definitely recommend checking that out. But I was really surprised that basically they got together and they decided, let's just start our own production company. So a colorist and an editor ganged up and they were like, we're going to write and direct. Let's go. And I guess in Hong Kong, that's a thing. So
yeah, sure.
That's great. They've both been involved in a lot of films, most of them together. So Danny made The Eye, I2, I3, Child's Eye, and then
did not realize there were 4 of them.
Yeah,
quite a few.
I knew about the I2, and I love the I2.
I'll get to it. I think I'll actually check that out. Then he also did Force of Death, Messengers, Bangkok Dangerous, and then Oxide similarly worked on pretty much all those same films. Funnily enough, the star of this movie, Angelica, sorry, I'm trying to read my own handwriting if it's Lee or Wu. Lee, my handwriting's really bad, guys. She's the star of this movie. She's done a couple of things, including obviously The Eye, Recycle, and Missing, which are, I think at least 2 of those are Pang Brothers films. She's married to Oxide, so some kind of romance probably blossomed out of this movie. Which is really sweet. The hot male lead, I guess you might say. The nephew,
You don't sound convinced.
I mean, okay. He's fine, I guess. I was just surprised. Well, it's more that the character doesn't seem like he's going to be important and then becomes very important. And you're like, wait, okay.
He's not good looking enough to be the lead.
He's perfectly good looking.
Following him?
But he's like the nephew of some other doctor. And they keep really like honing that in. He doesn't show up until like halfway through the film. So I was like, oh, I guess you're going to be in this movie now. But he's actually, I was like, he's not been in any movies. He doesn't even have a picture on IMDb. His name is Lawrence Chow. He's a Chinese Canadian singer. That's why. So I think they got like the hot guy to star in it who's like some popular singer. So that was kind of a fun twist. So yeah, that's the background setup of the people involved in this film. The film itself, the basic premise is there's a girl who's blind and she's going to get a corneal transplant. For the first time in her life, she'll be able to see. And she goes through with the surgery, and as she's going through recovery, she's starting to see things that no one else can. Eyes seem to be basically either haunted or gifted, but they allow her this extra ability to see this extra world that, and she doesn't know that other people can't see it because this is her first time seeing things.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because the setup is great. Like it really sounds pretty scary. And when you start to initially see things, you're like, man, this is going to be a ride. But I feel like this is one of those films that's early enough in the Asian extreme cinema bump that it was still sort of a little bit more culturally based rather than horror, like Western horror based. There's a lot of almost romantic shots and moments. It feels almost soap opera-y in places. Have you guys seen Houseu?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it feels like that at certain points where you're almost like in this lyrical journey with this girl. Like a lot of it's told. The story isn't. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's told in the way you're used to having stories told. Sure. It feels like there's episodes almost that are being unfolded before you.
Kind of like The Grudge did that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Very similarly, where you're just like, oh, okay, I guess we're still going. Okay, what happens now? Oh, now we're going to this part of the country. Okay. Right. It was interesting, and there's little things like I think again very cultural. So there's a lantern that is outside of a door, and it's like ooh, and I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I know I'm supposed to be scared. Right. And there's a little boy ghost who, I mean, there are some really great moments where she'll watch some of the ghosts repeat out their tragedy over and over again, and every day they have to repeat the thing. So if they committed suicide, there's a little boy who was trying to grab his homework and he fell off of a balcony and died. So she keeps seeing this little boy in her apartment. In the complex, in the hallway. And he is constantly asking her if she knows where his report card is. And she's like, no, I don't know. Go ask somebody else. Because she doesn't realize at first. But it's interesting because at one point he starts eating the candles that are lit outside of his home. And he's like, I'm so hungry. And I'm like, wow, this is really creepy. But it's also really not creepy. Like, he's like chewing through wax. I'm like, do ghosts, are they fed? And there's this other scene where there's a ghost woman who's missing her bottom half. And I don't know what that means. But she like floats into this butcher shop where her husband runs the shop, and she's holding her child. And she starts licking this like piece of beef.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and she has this extraordinarily long tongue. And I'm like, yeah, it's creepy. But I'm not sure why. I'm like... I don't know, like there's all these odd setups, and I feel like in a film that I would be used to, there would be some kind of different payoff, but it really swerves in a different direction. So I'd say culturally, it's totally fascinating to check out because it really lays out horror in a way that isn't for us. I don't think this movie is for a Western audience. I think it found a bit of a Western audience. But for example, I don't know. I'm trying to even. So she finds out there are all these people who have unfinished business or ghosts who are hanging around. So in a Western film, they would probably try to help them solve their issues and help them go on to the other world. Nope. Never addresses it. Just part of the fact of life, or death rather. There's this weird thing where she realizes at a certain point in the film that there's a ghost that's actually present within herself, and so she's trying to figure out how to deal with that. And the eyes that she inherited are basically this ghost's vision. So she's trying to get the backstory of who is this person who was able to see ghosts, and she takes the hot doctor guy on a journey across the land, and they get to the village, and the girl apparently she could see these ghosts, but she could also see tragedies before they happen. So there's this sort of thing about all of a sudden the kind of dynamics and the rules of her power change, and all of a sudden she's seeing things that are about to happen as well as dead people. And I'm like, wait, okay, hold on. So so now she can see tragedies. Cool. Okay. So she's gonna stop tragedies. Nope. Just not happening.
Hey, look what's gonna happen.
Yeah, like there's a lot of setup where you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna lead somewhere different, and instead it's just showing you like the facts of the tragedy of this kind of existence. And and in the end, things kind of go back to normal to a certain extent, and that seems to be the
She blinks a couple times. Oh, my eyes are nice now.
Not quite, sort of, a little bit like that.
Remind me what year this came out?
2002.
Okay, so after The Sixth Sense, I remember when I saw it, it had a lot of Sixth Sense moments.
It has a lot of Sixth Sense moments.
And that was such a gigantic worldwide blockbuster. I feel like they were trying to capture some of that.
It definitely feels middle ground. It feels like it's partway between two worlds. But there are some weird Western tendencies too. Like they have this kind of idea of like the Grim Reaper. So whenever somebody's about to die, this dude shows up and wanders off with them, and she hates it and it's terrifying. It's really scary, but it's also like it seems like the people who are being taken off are totally fine with it. Right. And they're like, cool, all right, nice knowing you. See you later. Bye.
But it's sort of like I mentioned The Grudge earlier, where I was watching The Grudge and I already knowing it was going to get remade. And watching this, how the hell is this going to get remade for a U.S. audience? Because there's no lead character.
No.
There's just there's sort of a lead that's kind of around a bunch, but it's all these little vignettes almost of stories. So
I remember watching The Grudge and literally saying what the plot was out loud so I could keep track of what was going on because I was so confused. Yes. I was like, okay, so this kid is over here and he's doing this because this, I think. All right, let's next scene.
But he's also a cat? How long was I sleeping?
Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't say I would want to recommend this as like a spooky, crazy movie, but I do think it's interesting culturally. If you liked Hausu, or if you like these films that are kind of interesting artifacts, I would check it out. But it's not gonna go in any of the directions you think it's gonna go, or you would be satisfied as a Western audience member.
Would you then suggest that a Western audience check out the Western remake of this film?
Oh yeah, totally. It's amazing. You should all go out. You should buy it. Find the most expensive copy on Amazon because Kelly's so into Amazon. So it's a Seattle business. That's what I hear. So
well, technically.
So I actually haven't seen the remake, but I have zero interest in it.
I have seen the remake.
How is it?
It's fucking awful.
Yeah, it's not. It's not good.
There was they could have done exactly the type of thing you were talking about with, trying to come to some kind of resolution with her helping the ghosts or something like that.
Right.
But maybe they didn't do that because that is what The Sixth Sense was.
Oh, right.
Oh, but that's still it's still more helpful. If you're saying they're there because they have unfinished business and they're stuck until they finish it, why set that up?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is because The Ring was a runaway hit.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer to every
True.
American remake of a Asian film was because The Ring was such a fucking blockbuster.
Yeah.
Far more successful, too, as far as interpreting the film to a Western audience.
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah,
The Grudge
definitely.
worked to a lesser extent, but
Yeah,
they were
still
smart
decent.
enough to realize that what made The Grudge interesting was the Japanese legend.
Yes.
And they were like, okay, we can make this about an American protagonist, but we got to set it in Japan because that's where this stuff happens.
Right. Is that Sarah Michelle Gellar?
Yeah.
Okay. I've definitely seen.
Buffy's not so good with ghosts. Better.
I thought that was a fairly creepy and a decent remake.
Yeah, it is.
But only because they kept it based in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way they could have made it over here and made
Right.
a Western audience understand, because you'd be like, well, why is this ghost acting like this?
Yeah.
Right. It's funny. So I went to this this kind of arcade theme park in Japan. I went out there for a Tokyo Game Show, and it was weird because game culture is obviously very big, and it's several floors, and it's some of it's got rides, and there's VR experiences, and there are all these different different kinds of games that you can go and play. And so the group I was with decided to go and check out the scariest ride there. So we entered this room, and there's a bunch of other Japanese people in there with us. So we're all kind of tucked in together. And there's just this white room, and there's a person who comes in a white robe and says a bunch of things in Japanese. And people are like, ooh. And then we go into the next room, and somebody else says something in Japanese, and there's a light that flashes, and people are like, ooh. And we're like, okay. And then you go in the next room, and halfway through the person speaking, you can kind of see somebody walking around the outside. And then all of a sudden, somebody who's wearing the same color clothing as the walls walks past, and everyone's like, oh, and jumping. I'm like, I don't know. And then you get in the final room, and they're telling you to press a button. And they're like, press the button, press it. I'm like, okay, pressing the button. I don't know why that's happening. And everybody's walking out, and they're just like, oh. And I'm like, I'm missing so much context right now.
Was everyone else there Japanese?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
they understood.
They understood what
culturally.
was
They
in
understood
culture.
why
And I
they
think-
should be scared.
I think there's a lot based on, context and storytelling. And I think that's a huge part of it is the storytelling element was somehow involved in freaking these people out. And I was like, this is the boringest thing I have walked very
Well,
slowly.
you should learn Japanese then.
I know. It's
And
true.
then
I wish
also
I could.
live there your entire life and be raised with their
That's
ghost
right.
stories and all that stuff.
that would
Because I
help.
remember
Exactly.
hearing, I can't remember what movie it was, but a woman in the beginning of it kills herself, and she's wearing a red dress, and there was, that's basically all I remember, only because afterward somebody told me, in Japanese culture, killing yourself in a red dress, that's a big no-no. And that means you're definitely going to come back as a ghost. And I was like, well, that would have been nice to know. And you realize, they got their own legends and everything, and all the stuff that we know, probably seems very silly to them.
All the cabin in the woods style, girl showering in locker rooms, all that kind of stuff is part of our history. Yay!
It's why we get the
Might
long.
go further back than that. But
I know. I was like, thinking, what else could I bring up?
We get the long, stringy black hair in front of the
Right.
face over there because that is something that culturally, hair is very important. It's one of the things with Uzumaki. Junji Ito had said that he wanted to make it spirals because in Japan, spirals and anything like that is considered a good luck. And he was like, I feel like if I can subvert this, that will make it scary.
Interesting.
And so, we're over here watching this going, well, why spirals?
Right. Is it just a neat shape?
Right.
Is it because you get lost in it? Yeah, it was definitely really fascinating from that standpoint. Honestly, the most upsetting part of the movie I found was when she was blind, she was part of a violin club, or not violin. She was part of a band, an orchestra for just blind people. And then when she got her sight, they kicked her out. And they said, you can't play with us anymore because you got your sight. That was heartbreaking. It was really tough.
She was like, you know what, I'm fine with that. I didn't realize how ugly all you people are.
Right? Peace
I'll
out.
see myself out.
Jesus.
Alrighty, so let's.
Well, all right. Okay. Good choices, you guys. This was maybe a little more challenging than I thought for some of the reasons that you were just talking about. There were things in these movies that I didn't quite get.
Well, it's also a really rich subject. Sort of like let's do one on ghosts. Yeah, there's a lot of great options. Or let's do one on flying bugs. All right, this is going to take a little bit of digging. There's so many
It wasn't
options.
supposed to be flying bugs. That's just how it ended up. Okay, it was death from above.
Death from yes.
Well, and the crazy thing is, I think were each of our films from different countries. So mine was Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Korea and Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's amazing the diversity, and that alone, each one probably has its own cultural specifics.
The alternative I talked about was Thailand. So,
Did you guys watch? I think it was called Kingdom or The Kingdom on Netflix.
Oh my gosh, the original one?
No, well, I don't know if it was. I'm not talking about Kingdom Hospital or anything like that.
Okay,
I was like, I've been trying to find it for a long time.
No, it was a. Boy, I want to say Hong Kong, but I'm not sure if it was feudal Japan even or Korean. But it was a 17th or 18th century zombie story.
What?
Wild.
And the entire country was being overrun by zombies.
Wow.
And I was like, well, how are they going to do this? Since clearly this did not happen, and they're just treating it as a horror story that's set in these feudal times. And I got to say it was working for me. I think it's called Kingdom. I wish I had done any research before I started talking about this.
That's all right. We're used to that for all of us.
Right. Okay. So actually, that wraps up the episode. And
yes,
whose choice is it? Is it Vanessa?
It might be. Is it me? I think it is.
I think so too. Because didn't you pick serial killers a couple weeks back, and I picked.
So
what would you like to talk?
Yeah. Okay. So the genre that I would like to pick is films that take place on Halloween.
Right. Now, can we? It doesn't have to be like the entire film taking place on Halloween. So Halloween
It
Day
just
can
has
be,
to have
it's
Halloween
gotta
Day
have
involved in it.
October 31st.
Like E.T.
Absolutely.
Oh, what?
See?
You
There you
took
go.
my choice.
I kind of doubt that.
Okay, I like this idea. I think that I can come up with something here.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. There's a lot of good stuff in
There's
Halloween.
a great, and I think there's a lot of great things you can play with around the Halloween period.
This smells like you've taken my trick of already knowing your movie and then picking a theme around it.
I'm learning from the masters.
Oh shit, we're masters? I'm so sorry about your education.
No, it's great. No. I'm actually super, super excited. Halloween is one of my favorite times of year. So we're already talking tons about horror films, but now it feels for real.
Right, because everybody else is talking about it too.
Yes,
That's
cool.
right. Good point.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening and the rating and reviewing and sharing. Especially thanks to Danny Willifer for always sharing every single episode when it pops up. Really appreciate that, Danny.
And remember, as far as the rating, do the 5-star rating. List the thing. I'm sorry I haven't popped on iTunes for a little while to see if we have any new movies recommended with the festival and stuff. I've fallen behind. But
if you want to torture Eric.
Yeah, 5-star ratings only on iTunes.
Bob, you should completely remove your last review. Give him
get a new email. Sign in under a new email. Leave another one.
All right, thanks everybody. We will be back in 1 week, and we're talking movies that actually take place on Halloween at some point in them. This is going to be a difficult one to fit onto the screen that has the title for what the film is.
You're welcome.
All right, see ya.
Yeah.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Morgret. Our theme music is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Aeons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts are found.